Hello, my name is Troy Russell. My wife Kimberly and I are the operators of Old Bandon Golf Links in Bandon, Oregon. This course was built in 1927 by a gentleman named Lee Smith, who traveled down the coast from Tillamook because some townsfolk, business leaders in Bandon, were interested in having a golf course. And they got together enough money and enough interest to build it. And this gentleman came down and with a crew and built the golf course, a 9-hole golf course, in 3 weeks' time, 85 years ago. The first golf match that was played in Bandon, now a famous golf town, was played in late October, early November on some temporary greens on that initial routing. The course officially opened in the next summer in 1928, but we have some scorecards and some information from that first season when it was still pretty rough. The golf course has evolved over the years. It's now down to 2,200 yards. It was par 36 and a much longer layout, but over the years it's changed, shortened as pieces were sold off or traded off, but a few of the holes remain as they were. It was built as a links course originally, and then evolved to more of a parkland course. Now the evolution is back the other way, since this is at the end of our 4th season, and we're evolving it back toward a links golf course. Not completely possible to do that because it's now landlocked. There's nowhere to take it, and there's a creek that runs through the middle of it. So there's no more room to lengthen it or make many changes, but we've added as much length as we can, added some strategic bunkers. Course conditioning is way better than it was. In fact, people that have been playing here for 50 years tell us it's the best it's ever been. When we first came here, because there's a Bandon Dunes golf resort up the street, we wanted to find a way to maybe bring some of those players here and sort of honor the history of the golf course being the oldest in the area. Came up with the idea of having renting period golf hickory shafted clubs, and we have 2 options for that. You can play 1880s golf, which with a gutta percha ball, and the gutta percha ball replaced the feathery, which was the ball in golf for hundreds of years. In 1848, gutta percha became the standard ball in golf and remained that way for the rest of that century. At the turn of the century, then the Haskell patent ball became the norm. You may remember in your youth of cutting open a golf ball, and it had compressed rubber bands at the core with a plastic or rubberized outer covering. That's the Haskell patent ball, and it became the ball in golf for the next 100 years. And you could still find some Haskell balls, modern Haskell balls. So the 1880s clubs, gutta percha is still used in the dental industry. That's why we're able to get gutta percha balls. They're handmade, and they don't go very far. 160 yards is about all you got. And the instruments, the clubs, don't look all that familiar. It's a hard game, but a lot of fun. And tees weren't invented until later in the early century, so you have to also tee off little piles of sand with the 1880s package. And it's difficult, but fun. And the course sets up well. At 2,200 yards, it sets up well, and it's par 36 with 1880s. A more popular package with more of our guests that want to play period golfers is 1920s. And you actually play that with a modern but soft ball that's been remolded to look like a 1920s mesh pattern. And you get a collection of clubs, limited clubs. You play essentially with a 3, 5, 7, 9 iron, but they're called a cleek, mashy, Niblick, and a Niblick being a 9 iron, and a flat bladed putter that's similar to what equipment similar to what Bobby Jones used. And the putter's like Calamity Jane, his famous putter. And although it says driver on the driving club, it's actually a brassy, which is a 2-wood. And it remains par 32, and it's actually a lot of fun. There's a set of clubs just here in front of me. This is the 1920s package, and you could some very early technology. This is the bag stand of the era. Pretty simple technology. This again is the brassy, a 2-wood, a little different waggle and feel than most people are used to, and a cleek, a mashie Niblick, which is essentially a 7-iron, a Niblick, which is a 9-iron. Notice there's no bounce, so you can actually lay some turf over or dig it deep in the bunker with this Niblick with no bounce. And then there's the flat bladed putter, a bit like Calamity Jane, Bobby Jones' famous putter. And the golf balls that you would play with this package are modern. This is essentially a 65 compression Wilson that's put into a mold, heated up to give it the same dimple pattern that you'd see from the 1920s. Bobby Jones would have won his Grand Slam with a ball that looked much like this. And it was probably actually a fairly similar compression.